It's just an irresponsible thing to say. You are a doctor, right? And you're sitting with a pastor, and y'all have made it very clear how y'all feel about my pastor. Cool. I don't care. I don't give a fuck, right? But at the end of the day, for someone who's a therapist and you have a doctorate degree and all that, you should at least recognize where you are. And you shouldn't even even if my pastor was the one to say something like that, which he wouldn't, you shouldn't even encourage that. Like, you know better than that. You just know better than that, right? Anyway, let's continue.
Yes.
This man been praying and praying and praying over me. Listen, this is just, y'all know Doc be cutting up, so I'm gonna cut up right now. Disclaimer. I literally had to call one of my prayer warriors, and Willie Mo Jr. You seen him on my show. I said, Willie, and I called my bishop, Michael Berry. I said, I need y'all to pray my pheromones off. Pray them down, pray them off. And they said, Doc, that's unlike you, because they know I'm not into casual sex.
Right.
Like, that's not like you. I said, it's been a year since I've done anything. I said, but boy, this man just been, I'm afraid he's going to pray my panties off. And I don't want that.
He going to pray my panties off? So that's what we're using prayer for now. I'm gonna get a phone call about this live tomorrow, but I'm sorry. I just had to. It was wild to me to watch this interview. I just was like,
don't want that. But why? Because he's activating and awakening things in me that are connected to the intimate part of me as a woman.
Let me ask y'all something. Do y'all coochie begin wet when y'all pray? Because according to her, prayer is awakening her insides. Prayer is awakening her guts. Drop down in the comments right now. Let me know if y'all coochie get wet when y'all pray. Drop down the comments right now and let me know if y'all coochie get wet when somebody pray for y'all. I'm just reading the comments. I'm scanning the comments. I'm scanning the comments. What are we talking about? Again, she be saying a whole lot of nothing.
I stumbled upon an interview with Pastor Jamal Bryant and Dr. Cheyenne Bryant. And it was on Pastor Jamal Bryant's podcast. He had Dr. Cheyenne Bryant on as a guest. And so this was, I would say, in my opinion, the most awkward, the most uncomfortable interview that I've ever seen. I'll just be honest. And I've seen a lot of interviews. I used to conduct interviews myself. This would be one of the most awkward and one of the most uncomfortable, right? The reason why is because Dr. Cheyenne Bryant, now let me just preface all this by saying I'm aware of Pastor Bryant and where he stands as far as not being the most respected pastor. He's had his own transgressions, which he's come forward about previously cheating on his wife. I think he's had kids out of wedlock or kids outside of his marriage. Whatever. He's married now to, I believe her name is Carrie Turner. And it looks like he's trying to turn things around. So I want to preface all this by saying I understand his position and that as a pastor, there are a lot of people who don't respect him as a pastor. But we have to acknowledge that at this current moment, he is a pastor. And so my assumption would be that there will be a certain code of conduct on his podcast because there's a difference between the way you act at work, act at church, perhaps when you go to the club. Those are, we all have our own codes of conduct. And so what shocked me the most was the ways in which Dr. Cheyenne Bryant, I don't know if it was the cursing, because she cursed multiple times while speaking to him. Not sure if it was sort of her over talking him, as she often does, really trying to bulldoze and get her point across, and being very aggressive in conversation. But definitely when she got on the topic of prayer and was sort of mixing prayer and her, I guess her assessment of, a guy that she's dating and how he prays over her, and really talking, in great detail about how this man praying over her activates a lot of her, sexual feelings and her sexual desires. She even takes it a step further to talk about, and in many ways to debate, Pastor Bryant about behaviors and ways that you should conduct yourself intimately and sexually in a relationship. And I'll just kind of, flat out say that she talked about being naked and taking a bath with a guy that she dated, or sleeping in the same bed with him. And she was, I guess what she was trying to describe is discipline, and how it's important for men to have discipline, or, people to have discipline. But, she's describing again these scenes of her being naked and taking this bath and her sleeping in the bed, and saying that, we didn't fool around, we didn't have sex.
But let's have a real conversation. Do y'all coochie get wet when somebody pray for y'all?
If y'all want real intimate,
I want y'all to listen to what she's about to say, and listen good. And listen good.
Real intimate, I'm gonna go there, freaky, nasty, off the wall, very satisfying sex.
Yes.
Bring God in that thing first. No, I'm serious. Bring God, bring that woman closer to God.
Let me rewind that. I want y'all to hear that again. This woman is dangerously horny. Cheyenne Bryant is dangerously horny, to the point. This is dangerously horny. When you hear people say, damn, this person is dangerously horny, they talking about this. You are dangerously horny if you have to use scripture to encourage this type of shit. Dangerously horny.
You know what God said? He said he could do exceedly, abundantly,
The views
above
expressed
all
on this show
things
today
than you can imagine.
reflect that of our guests.
He would do exceedingly abundantly above all you.
She is using, he will do exceedingly abundantly above all you can ask or think. She is using that to describe how good the sex will be if you bring God into your relations.
And Dr. Bryant, Pastor Jamal Bryant, was very clear. You don't want to play with that. Like, I hear what you're saying, and discipline is important, and it's great that this man was able to take naked baths with you and sleep in the bed with you, et cetera, and allegedly you guys didn't have sex. But that's not something, if you're on the path to wait until marriage before you have sex, or if you're on the path to avoid sexual encounters as a Christian until marriage, don't play with that. Don't tempt him. You shouldn't tempt yourself. And, and she proceeded to kind of almost argue with him or overtalk him to make her point that it is possible. It is possible to be fully naked with a man who's attracted to you, and you guys, not do anything. And, if the man is disciplined enough and respects you enough, he won't touch you. Now, on the surface, that sounds reasonable and it sounds great. And it's like, okay, yeah, I mean, I see her point and where she was headed with it. But we all know as humans that in most cases, people who engage in that type of thing strip down naked and say, yeah, let's just, go take a bath and, not touch each other. We all know in most cases how those situations turn out, right? So the fact that, again, she aggressively argued with the pastor to sort of prove her point that, you could behave in a way as a Christian that really most Christians know and understand, and we've been hearing this since we were young, that you shouldn't put yourself in situations that can lead to sin. But the funny thing is that although all of this happened in this interview is, I believe, over an hour long, all of this happened, it wasn't until the end that I was like, okay, I'm going to talk about this on my channel because, and this is where humility comes in, right? I everything else I talked about, I would say, suggest that Dr. Bryant, it's clear, it becomes more clear that as she says she's been celibate for like a year, it sounds like she has. And also perhaps a little bit of a Jezebel spirit, maybe a lot, I don't know. And again, this is not to come down hard on her, but this is an analysis because sometimes these type of justifications and these types of things we need to pay attention, because we have to remember that Dr. Cheyenne Bryant is a leader on the internet, a leader amongst Black women, a leader in the mental health psychology therapy space. Although she has admitted to not being a licensed doctor, she has also owned being an expert. I believe she called herself a psychology expert. So I just want to point out the problem with someone who has labeled themselves as a psychology expert, who apparently has a PhD or a doctorate of some sort in this realm, and yet advocates and literally argues for things that on the surface might sound reasonable and fair, but when you really listen intently, it is actually very dangerous, very problematic, and again, could potentially encourage a Jezebel spirit amongst women, and perhaps also encourage men to engage. I've heard Jessie Wu on her channel did a great analysis talking about how some men and women can do this too. You can use the Bible and can use prayer to, as Dr. Cheyenne Bryant talked about, pray the panties off of women. And, and as, so, we have to be careful. But